Hi and welcome to the Homeopathy Health Show. I'm Atiq Ahmed Bhatti, a fourth generation homeopath with over 25 years of professional experience and practice in this field of healing. The Homeopathy Health Show is the online voice of homeopathy around the world, promoting and raising awareness of this truly unique system of healing, which is suitable for all ages, young and old. Every week I invite guests from the world of homeopathy to come and share their experiences, their work, offer insights, and essentially talk all things homeopathy. Why not visit www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast button to listen to the latest episodes. So let's begin today's show here on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 talk health radio. Hi and welcome to another festive episode of the Homeopathy Health Show here on UK Health Radio. I do hope you're having a pleasant time as far as spending quality time with family and friends. It's always a wonderful time of year, isn't it? Literally, it's such a good opportunity for get-togethers with the family, with friends, and just really sort of taking some me time. And that there's nothing wrong with that. That's so important nowadays. Now, I'm delighted to welcome my guest for this week's episode, who is none other than Emma Colley. Emma has been a homeopath for over 16 years and teaches at 2 schools in the UK. She has a background in psychology and neuroscience and found herself exploring homeopathy due to an ailment her horse was suffering with. Suffice to say, homeopathy saved the day with its usual incredible success, and as it goes, the rest is history. Emma, it's so good to have you on the Homeopathy Health Show. Thank you so much. How are you doing?
You're very welcome. It's great to be here. I'm good, thank you. How are you? How about you?
It's very nice of you to ask, actually. It's been a really busy month, and it's so brilliant because I'm talking to so many different homeopaths and researchers in homeopathy, teachers, students, home prescribers, and it really gives you this sort of buzz, Mm-hmm. It's a really nice feeling that there's a lot going on with homeopathy, and I'm doing my best, I suppose, in the humblest way to promote that on my socials, and that wasn't a plug, but certainly,
Follow the socials, everyone. Yeah.
Follow my socials, and you'll see all the guest videos and the trailers, and it just makes homeopathy very tangible and very exciting and interesting, and you can actually see it at work. And I think, that's just a plus point for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah. And I really like the diversity that you're talking about, anyone from home prescribers through to students, through, to master practitioners. It's incredibly accessible, isn't it, for so many people at different levels to go into this and use it effectively.
Absolutely. My objective was always, it sounds like you're interviewing me, but my
not at all.
I know how it feels now. I know how it feels. And keep calm. But it's nice because it's tangible. My objective was always, and always will remain, is to make homeopathy tangible so that people can. So I'll give you your example. So Emma Colley, yes, and you're teaching and you're a homeopath and you're supervising students. And it's fine that they would have heard of you, but to hear your voice and to hear your insights, I think it's just a totally different level. And it just brings it home that there's so much variety in homeopathy. And this is people from different amazing backgrounds who decided to change their career, those who already knew what they wanted to do. And it's wonderful. And we should, as Palin Brzezinski quite nicely put in her guest trailer the other day, let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate that diversity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So do tell me, Emma, about your journey to homeopathy, because you do mention that you grew up hearing stories of your grandma buying tissue salts and, using that for the treatment of ailments. So what was that like, and what else can you share? What do you remember from those days?
Yeah, so I kind of feel like I missed, I sort of missed the peak of her doing that. And I was in the place, I just very used to the conventional medical model, I guess. So I was sort of like, why would she do that? Why would she throw the antibiotics in the fire and say she wasn't using them and she was going to use these tissue salts instead? And definitely not advocating anyone, hurls any prescribed medicines in the fire. But that was her way.
No, certainly not. Certainly
not. Absolutely. That was her choice, and that was what she did at that point in time. And to be fair, I thought that was insane. Just totally crazy. Why would you do that? And now, coming back to using tissue salts in my practice, seeing how incredibly brilliant they can be. I don't use them all the time at all, but, really, this lady had, a real concept of how useful and how therapeutically helpful homeopathy and homeopathically prepared things such as tissue salts can be. So, really, it was in a place that I just didn't really understand what she was doing with that. And why would she bother? Because there was this great stuff that everybody could use. So it's interesting, kind of feels like she was quite old when she had my dad. So by the time she was my grandma, she was, much further on in the sort of generational gap was bigger than with my other grandmother. So she was this kind of crazy woman who used these alternatives then to me. And, really fascinating coming back and thinking, gosh, I wish I'd known her when she was younger, or, there was a difference then that I could have really understood what she was doing and why she was seeking alternatives. It would have been fascinating to have had those conversations that were sadly missed. But yeah, I definitely remember, the mention of her doing these things. So yeah, it was until I was 16, I guess, my first experience directly of homeopathy or for people or my animal. Actually, it was my horse that introduced us to homeopathy.
Emma, it's fascinating because do you find that, the previous generations, certainly our grandparents, let's say, and even our great-grandparents, the thinking or the thought processes were very different, and it might be because life was, compared to today, certainly, very simple. And I mean that in a positive way.
Sure.
Today it's very stressful because there's so much going on at any one time, and we have access to so many life luxuries. But because life was relatively simple, let's say, in previous decades gone by, then it also, do you think it also made people very capable of making decisive, to make decisions without having to overthink things? Like nowadays, if we have a decision to make, we'll consult and we might think and we might research, and it takes a long time. Whereas I find, like, talking to people homeopaths around the world, who talk about their grandparents especially, and it's like, no, they were committed to homeopathy and they used it, and it was a no-brainer as such. It was like, I'm going to use this, and this is the way, and this is what I prefer, this is my personal choice. And nowadays we have so much variety that we can, do so much research, and sometimes you can never come out of that circle, can you? Or that cycle, should I say, of just researching something and not taking that step.
Agreed. Yeah, I think there is something about living simpler that's incredibly beautiful. You're, often so much closer to nature. I remember they had a fairly small garden, but grew quite an extensive diversity of things that they would eat. So, I guess organically gardening it before there was really a name for it. So the food was simpler, I suppose, for them. Yes, I think there's, we can get into that analysis paralysis, can't we? When there's just too many options to look at, and it's overwhelming. And then maybe we do nothing, or we, ask everybody or canvass their opinions. And if, simpler options, sounds really positive to me. I'm definitely trying to streamline things in different ways.
It just makes life easier, doesn't it? And actually, that does take me to homeopathy and homeopathic remedies, because even though they are so versatile and they have such a beautiful signature, each remedy is magnificent in its own realm of healing or its applicability to healing. But it's also beautifully simple, and I think that's what is really important, because it's not always the big bucks, the best tech in the world that brings about a change. Sometimes it's the simple things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've seen one instance, I particularly love the little kits that Helios does, particularly the 36 remedy one with the little booklet that explains how you use the remedies. And I had one client, I consulted with her for her son. She took a kit, read up on the remedies and was like, gosh, this sounds just like my partner. Gave him one of the remedies from that. We could look at it as a very basic kit of remedies. And his, one of his long-term issues was entirely resolved with just this. So the simplicity and accessibility of these remedies is really phenomenal.
And it doesn't have to be. I think we've grown up. Certainly, our generation. Well, I don't know about mine. I'm getting on a bit now, but the next generation certainly are very. They are able to make good decisions now quickly, even using technology, and that's showing you that we often talk, don't we, about those who grew up in the 80s and how life was so different and how it is certainly now. And I think that our next generation are getting to that stage where they can now also appreciate certain things because they're so open-minded. It's not it's a closed mind, it's not tunnel vision. It's like, okay, well, they got this and this, and I don't like them, but let me at least find out what it is, and that's a good thing, right?
For sure. Yeah, definitely. The 16-year-old is definitely quite open-minded and exploring different options.
I was going to ask you about when you were 16, and you said that you had a horse, male or female?
It was a mare. She was, she.
And she was treated for an incurable eye disease. So do share that story, because it does sound really fascinating.
Yeah, really one of those kind of dramatic things that just never expect will happen. But she'd ended up getting what they called recurrent uveitis, inflammation of one of her eyes, which we think was caused by a trauma injury. She'd possibly bashed her head or bashed her eye on a surface. And so she was on steroid injections every 6 weeks into her eyelid, which, she was a big 16.3, somewhat feisty mare. We had to sedate her to do that, then the injection. And she was also on anti-inflammatories. So because of the constant anti-inflammatory medication, we had to check out, were her organs okay? How is she responding to this medication? And got to a point, they said, well, her liver's not operating quite as well as it should be. So we've got a concern. We don't want to keep on with this treatment regime. So what we might do, it's possible we might remove her eye, because that would sort it all out. So it's one solution, removing the diseased eye does remove the eye disease, but it also means you've got one eye left on your horse. So my mum at the time wrote to a herbal company who referred us to Chris Day, a homeopathic vet who's recently died, I'm sure you know, a fantastic pioneer of homeopathy. So he referred us to a local veterinary practice, John Saxton, who was running a practice in Leeds. He came out to see our horse. We had 5 little tablets and she had to have them one a day for 5 days. It was one of those, like in your films, and you see, this is about to occur, and then there was a massive snowfall and we couldn't drive the car up the mile up the hill, but, we were determined she was having the remedy. So my dad would trek up there with a little remedy and a piece of carrot. And basically the short story is 5 days of that, and she never had the eye disease ever again.
That's amazing.
So conventional vets said, it's not cured, it's in remission. And I got to the point, I don't mind if it was in remission or it was cured. It doesn't really matter. She never had it again until she died, quite a long, probably 10, 12 years later. So, in permanent remission worked for us. And so we had a horse with 2 eyes, very healthy, happy, lots of good times.
Great. Yeah. And this is your personal horse?
Yeah, it was our family's horse. Yeah, mine and my sister. Me and my sister were the ones that rode her. Dad helped out looking after her. Mum helped financing her. Yeah, it was a collective family horse.
So do you still keep horses, or?
I don't. No, I don't know. Just 2 dogs and a cat. All of them benefit from homeopathy.
Of course. I see how you plugged that. I like that. That's good. That's what I like. This is the Homeopathy Health Show. Yeah, this is what it's about. But it's as far as having the horse, and so obviously you're involved in horse riding, and was that just something you just wanted to do as a child, or
Yeah, just fell into, and just an activity to try out, and then really enjoyed it. And it got to a point, Mum was like, oh, I think we might, let's look at buying a horse. And so we ended up with this beautiful Palomino mare, Czechoslovakian warm blood. And yeah, just brilliant adventures. We went off on a few trekking adventures. We would take her with us, and we did one particular triangle. Actually, we did it twice, sort of Whitby, Pickering, Scarborough, riding kind of, I don't know, 18 miles a day perhaps, stopping at a bed and breakfast on a farm, stabling the horse, going for a dinner at the pub, and then getting up and riding the next day. Some really, really happy times. And when I was studying in Manchester, I'd phone up and be like, oh, is it good weather at home? I'll just, hop on the bus. I loved the city life, but definitely a country mouse. So I was very happy to hop on the bus and go home and reset everything, get back out into nature, and then be able to go back and study again in Manchester.
That's so wonderful, isn't it? So such a nice, such fond memories of childhood, and that's just beautiful, isn't it? That really is. And horses, of course, are very, very caring animals. Anyhow, they express so much love. Yeah. I often find, Emma, that they're so misunderstood, unless you've been there or you've had a horse. So yeah, but they are very, very compassionate animals indeed. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Now that takes us on to studying. And before you actually went into homeopathy, you did a degree in psychology and neuroscience. And so tell us about that. So where did you study, and why those two particular subjects actually?
Yeah, so really, kind of my first gut/heart decision, or my first big one anyway. So I'd planned to be a vet. I knew when I was 7 I was going to be a vet, and until I was 17, and almost to the point I was filling in my UCAS form to say which universities I wanted to go to, I was on my work experience at a vet's practice, and I remember the exact moment. The vet's arm was halfway inside the horse, checking out whatever was going on. And I remember standing there looking at the owner and thinking, gosh, I'm actually more interested in what's happening for the owner than what's happening with the horse at this point in time. Obviously, I'd been around animals for years. We'd had a dog since I was 9. We'd had the horse since I was 14. So I was well used to being with creatures, but just really decided it was people that really fascinated me. So I was in this kind of crux point. That was my life plan for the last 10 years was changing. I had friends who were like, gosh, she should definitely be a vet. We need to take her out for dinner with our friends who are vets and encourage her. And I was just determined. I knew that I didn't want that route. And it was one of those things that I recognized people fascinated me. I would read the psychology neuroscience course in Manchester and just be like, wow, this is amazing. Listen to this. It's incredible. Look at the interaction between the brain and the nervous system and the psychology of it all. And then I'd read like psychology somewhere else and be like, yeah, that's really interesting. Wow, look at Manchester course. So it really was one of those. I just had to do it. I had no idea. In lots of ways, it made no sense. And it was absolutely the right thing to do. Still fascinated. And the neuroscience, entirely helpful. Things like, don't get me wrong, I don't think I can remember much of it. Advanced neuropsychology, advanced neuropharmacology, and things like that. I'm like, it was really helpful in terms of an understanding of, medication and how that works, pathways in the body and the anatomy and physiology. So a really great degree to do, actually, with the view of becoming a homeopath later.
I know how tough it is because my eldest is doing an MSc in neuroscience. So I know what's involved, and it's not easy, certainly, but it is fascinating. Absolutely. Every element of it is fascinating.
Yeah.
Now, after your degree is when I suppose the magic happened, right? Which is the magic of homeopathy. So what changed? What were you thinking of a career in either of these two subject matters that you did a degree in, or were you, when you had graduated, you thought, okay, what am I going to do now?
A bit of both, I guess. So I remember after I finished my dissertation, which I did in the neuroscience element of my degree, and the supervisor for that saying, can we not tempt you to do a PhD? It's really great to have you on board and do this. And can we not tempt you away from this alternative world that you're, heading towards? So I'd already during my third year of my degree, I'd done a diploma in reflexology. I'd done a little bit of Reiki. So I'd already got a real interest in that alternative world. We'd already got I'd already got a wee homeopathy kit that I took travelling to Thailand when I went off in my third year of my degree on a voluntary trip. So there'd already been that interest. And I remember being in my room in my second year of my degree and having the Society of Homeopaths information about becoming a homeopath. And it said somewhere in there that, you can't start studying until you're 21, which was the guidelines they had at that point in time. I don't know if they're different now. And so I was like, well, that's it. I can't do that. That's, it's done. I'll leave that to one side. And then went off traveling to Australia for a year after my degree. And as you do at, age 21, got into a quite unhealthy for me relationship and came back. And after a few weeks of, after that had finally finished and done, I was in a mess, basically. I wouldn't leave the house by myself. I was incredibly anxious. If I went out, I'd be with my parents always. By this point, I was 22, 23. It got to a point, my mum was like, can you just go and see that homeopath? Just go. So really through the process of working with her and, really rediscovering, remembering me, it was her that said, why aren't you doing homeopathy? I was like, oh yes, I forgot I was supposed to be doing that. And again, it was one of those things that just really felt right. So really listening to the whispers and I still am a bit of a swot and a bit of a geek and really fascinated by learning. My daughter's the polar opposite. Tell her to read something and she's less likely to do it than anything. But for me, I just can't get enough. I think this whole topic is fascinating. So, I went to my interview. I was convinced we'd have to have our interview very early on to get into this school. Went for my interview in February and started the course in September. And the principal at the time said, everybody else is further ahead than you. You must go away. You must read the Organon. You must read George Vathouclas' Science of Homeopathy and Medicine for a New Millennium. So I went away and I read all the books. I'm not sure they meant much sense to me at the time, but I read them all, came back and nobody else in the course had read them. So anyway, I'd got at least a kind of a start. But yes, so much more to delve into with all of those great works of science and art, really.
Which college did you study, or school did you study at?
To Manchester. I went back to Manchester to the Northwest College of Homeopathy there.
That's actually one of the colleges you're teaching at now?
It is, correct, yeah.
Oh, do tell more, because I know that in your bio, you mentioned that you are teaching at two colleges. The second one is something very close to my heart. But let's talk about the Manchester one first, and how you got involved. Really, was that just something natural? The next stage, as far as completing your homeopathy diploma and moving forward.
It was a little while after I started doing that, and I'd actually started doing their social media, running their social media at the college for a while, and then I think they asked me to go and do a talk on either going into business or on social media, and went and did that. And that was my first experience of stepping back into that kind of teaching environment. So I'd always said I was never going to teach. Both my parents are teachers, and I saw they're both primary school. In primary school, my dad was a head and my mum was a teacher, and always went, whoa, I'm never going to do this. But teaching adults is so different to teaching children who, frankly, sometimes don't want to be in the room. So teaching people who are really fascinated by the topic and keen and eager to learn, anything that you're sharing is just a really beautiful, it's incredible. I love it. I get a lot of energy out of going in and teaching and being there.
And do you cover, what type of subjects do you cover? Or is it just remedy relationships? What is it? Using a materia medica? What repertorization skills? What?
Yeah, so all of these topics are obviously taught in the college. Generally, my passions, I really love the work of Jan Scholten and the periodic table. So I talk to students about that. Yeah. I know, mine's in my bag.
For those who are just listening, obviously we're recording this over Zoom, and I've just shown Emma the table that I've got in my hand, which is of course the element theory by Jan Scholten. So I'll show you that again. But just to interject here, I mean, it's brilliant. This is just groundbreaking, and I use it a lot. And it really is an eye opener. And even if it's not something a homeopath wants to perhaps use personally in their practice, but knowing about it, I think, is really, really important, because there's so many things in there that can open up our understanding further of remedies, and of course, with the table of elements and how everything slots in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the two things that are just fascinating, aren't they? That Jan Scholten's use of that, and also the fact that the whole thing came up, even the fact the periodic table exists, I think I'm constantly grateful for, Mendelev's great work in creating it, and just inspired the whole thing. So that is definitely one of my beloved topics. I do some teaching on lifestyle medicine around how we might look at that, and how Hahnemann used that within his work. And there's no point in somebody keeping doing the same thing if we can see a clear issue. For example, lots of mucus going on and somebody's drinking pints and pints of milk. It would be wrong not to perhaps highlight that for the person, that there could be a correlation there. So do some teaching on that. Also work on going into practice, and then maybe at the School of Homeopathy in Stroud this time, I've been talking about Nux Vomica, about different comparing remedies within a rubric, how different remedies might present within the same collection of symptoms. So a range of different topics, really. And I really enjoy the diversity of it. You get so much out of teaching and sharing information, don't you? So,
you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the best feeling, isn't it? And also with homeopathy, you see, it's never one-sided. There's always a discussion. There's so many questions, and before I go further, actually, I because I don't want to forget, but hats off and congratulations to Manny Nolan from the School of Homeopathy. Thank you to him for firstly introducing us, and you being here, but also the work that he's doing, his brother, his late father, and that school is going places, and it's offering really, I mean, just like all the schools within the UK and the colleges that are teaching homeopathy, it's just incredible to see the work being done, and with for homeopathy as well, and that itself is promoting homeopathy. I just love it. You can tell, right? I'm so passionate. I just want to shout it out, as they say,
And it feels so much more.
It's not, certainly it's not homeopathy at the highway. That's not what I want to shout. I just want to shout out that, look, second largest system of medicine in the world, but it's the most comprehensive as far as compatibility or healing with and of disease. It's it's again, we go back to perhaps Jan Scholten and now the lanthanides and autoimmune disorders, and it's so many amazing things which people are just like, you want to just shout, come on, here it is, look, this stuff is here, it's real, it's proven now, it's scientifically proven. So you can't say no, it's just in the head. It's not. Sure. It's never has been, but certainly for those who perhaps would. But hey, we got off tangent, and I completely lost my. I
love a tangent. Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay. I don't even know what we were talking about now.
So we were talking about topics of teaching.
Absolutely,
different colleges. Yes. Yeah.
So how is the college in Manchester? How's that? Quite busy, it must be, with students year in, year out, and.
Yeah, I think there was a real change, wasn't there? So I don't know when you studied, but I was I graduated in 2007, and the class I was in, there was about 30 of us. And then, 2007, 2008, there was a big recession, there was big skeptic activity. There's some real changes, and I think colleges got smaller. There's less people studying. But I feel like it's in a really healthy place. It's a fantastic collection of lecturers. Principal Andreen is amazing. She's really steadily holding the fort. It's really beautiful. Yeah, I really enjoy going in. Well, I enjoy going to both the colleges. Yeah, they're both places where I would recommend. Personally, if people ask me where should I go and study, obviously those are the two I have the biggest involvement with. So I'm massively biased, but I think they're both excellent places of learning.
And are you regular with? Do you have slots to go in to teach? Because they're obviously from almost one side of the country to the other, aren't they? Or from the middle, certainly. So
Yeah,
how do you manage to do that? And
so Manchester's a lot more local to me. It's about an hour and a half drive, so that's definitely more accessible. In Stroud, I've fallen into a rhythm of going sort of about twice a year. So February and April tend to be my, is that right? February? Yeah, tend to be my kind of times of heading down there. So yeah, it's good. And Manchester depends on the timetabling, but again, it's easy to get to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're also a homeopath, of course, alongside the teaching and whatnot. So 16 years, amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations, of course.
Thank you.
Every day's, there's that song, isn't it? Everyone's a winner. With homeopathy, it's so true. I'm going to rephrase that for my socials and call it every homeopath's a winner.
We do see such incredible things.
I'm notoriously bad at giving ideas, by the way, but I do like that one because that's just, different.
Yeah. And it's incredible, I think, what we do. I got to a point I realised I don't stop and think about the successes enough. So you see some incredible things and then, then maybe somebody isn't getting better as quick as you want. So all your focus is obviously, and rightly so, on where can you help more here, or where can this change? Or but the times that somebody comes back and they say, I've had a headache issue since I was 16 and now I'm nearly 60, and within 3 months of working with you, my headaches have all cleared. That's totally remarkable, isn't it? And I don't stop enough and go, whoa, just hold your horses. Let's look at this. So yeah, I'll go with your every homeopath's a winner. I think we're incredibly lucky to do the job we do.
I had somebody a few months back, well, many months back, but I remember this because he came to see me. He just found my number and Googled it or whatnot, and he had an injury to his eye, so it was almost like his eye was he couldn't see out of it. It was temporary blindness, and his eye had crusted over. And after just 2 weeks, because he took some remedies, and I gave him some remedies, and after 2 weeks, I just thought, it's even though you book and you plan, sometimes when patients get better, they never really call back, or they tell you, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Fine. But I did call. This is my habit, and he said, "Yeah, much better." And he sent me the pictures, and I was absolutely astonished. I mean, being in practice as I have been for many years, but like you just so eloquently said, when we don't spend enough time thinking that or appreciating that wow, because and I don't mean this in an egotistical way. It's in a very humble way, that it's nice to have that feeling of knowing somebody is out of their trouble as far as their health.
Absolutely agree.
It's such a beautiful and humbling experience. That's what I mean, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely that.
I mean, we can't heal the whole world, but
no, for sure.
With many millions of homeopaths, we certainly can head in the right direction, which we are doing.
Yeah.
I've seen the increase in the interest in homeopathy now around the world, hearing it from organizations and researchers and homeopaths, and there is a big push now, or a big change towards people thinking not necessarily just homeopathy, but natural.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like there's almost a movement of empowering people to be able to, take that responsibility. And like you say, I'm all for the conventional medical system. I think it's life-saving. It's phenomenal. It's I would never want to be without it. But that doesn't mean it can A, do everything, and B, sometimes people, especially at the minute, can't really get hold of somebody for a doctor's appointment, and sometimes there might be something they can do to help themselves. So having people aware of when they can help and when they can't is a really helpful system as well. I think I have a client who says, every home should have one of the little Helios first aid. I feel like I'm promoting Helios. John Morgan, come on, give me some commission.
I'm waiting for John Morgan to come on the podcast. John, if you're listening.
Yeah, John, come on.
Can't wait to have you on.
But yeah, she says, every home should have one of these kits, and every GP should have a basic awareness of homeopathy. And she reckons that would save the NHS a fortune. And I absolutely agree. There's so much we can do on an acute minor injuries level that can be so helpful for people. Yeah. And I really, yeah, a massive fan of integrating, you know, whether that be walking alongside somebody while they just do their cancer treatment, if that's what they're needing to do for themselves at that point in time. You know, sometimes that's been giving somebody a remedy that's helped with the neuropathy, that's meant they're able to carry on with the chemo that the doctor said, you know, if this carries on, we won't be able to continue with your chemo. They wanted to, and so helping them cope with the side effects of that. So for me, integrating is a real joy in my work. I feel like I have a lot of conversations around people having a team, and, you know, have a great GP, a great diagnostician on that team, have your homeopath and maybe a nutritionalist or a physio or whatever you need for body work, or, you know, if you need that, and having that team of people that you can call on and help you with where you're at, I just think is a remarkable thing to do. I think we've had a while of thinking, you know, we're all solo out there pioneers of, no, not necessarily as homeopaths, but, you know, as people, we don't need anybody. It's not, and actually we work best in a collaborative way. So having a team, I think, is really key. Yeah, definitely agree with you there.
Do you specialize in anything specific, or what do you usually get as far as? I know this is a very open question because it's not possible. Like maybe I haven't asked it yet, but I'm already thinking. But or is it just a variety of ailments or conditions? Is it a mixed bag, and is it something particular that you sort of personally like to help people with?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have a niche. I really enjoy meeting all people. So my practice, I think my youngest person at the minute is maybe about 4 months, and my oldest is late 80s. So I have a real diversity of ages of people, and a diverse conditions that brings them into my practice. So I think I say on my website, you know, I understand the marketing advantages of having a niche, but I don't want to. I really enjoy meeting all people. So it's definitely about who's the person that has that illness. You know, as you know, Hippocrates said it's more important we understand the person who has the illness than the illness the person has. So for me, my best work is definitely where I've really got a sense of who that person is that has the complaint that's brought them into my room that day. So no, I definitely don't narrow it down. I guess I have headaches brought me to homeopathy, and, you know, I have a real sense of how debilitating that can be. You know, I used to be vomiting in a dark room, you know, have to sleep, have to come home from school. And, you know, over time, and it definitely wasn't an instant fix for me, but equally it has been far more effective than any of the other options that I'd had. So, yeah, I think headaches, I really love it when I can help. But that said, it doesn't really make any difference if it's someone who's presenting with IBS symptoms or, you know, fertility issues or whatever. And if you're able to help make a difference, to help that person move on in a healthier way, you know, anxiety and depression, I think I see a real broad range of conditions. And I enjoy that, because it's always that, who is that person who's in front of me that has those complaints? Yeah.
That's very similar to mine. I don't specialize in anything particular, even though you have successes, you know, even, for example, with infertility, huge successes, you know, but I don't specialize in it. It just so happens people here and obviously they come for a consultation and whatnot. So, but yeah, it's nice to be, I personally, like you, I like to be open, because the idea is, for me, again, personally speaking, as a homeopath, I'm here to help you. And I don't want to say, no, I'm just going to treat you in this. Yeah. Yes, of course, I know where my successes are, where conditions were very difficult to treat, perhaps, you know, and they were successfully treated, like everything else. But I don't like to call it specialist. I'm a specialist in it. I'm just here to help as much as I can. You know, I'll do my best. You know.
Yeah.
So now, tell me, with everything going on in your life, do you get time for any hobbies?
I do, although I have had a few conversations with my supervisor recently about, you know, where there's space for fun time. So it can be very busy. I've been a single parent since my daughter was 1. I have a very supportive partner now, so it's in a different place. But yeah, hobbies wise, I really love paddleboarding. I I want to just call it swimming, but now it's called wild swimming. So swimming in the river, swimming in the sea. Me and my daughter have just been in Greece, so there's been lots of swimming. Swimming in the Med makes me very happy. So lots of swimming, paddleboarding, walking the dogs, being out in nature mainly, sitting in the garden with a book. I'm a big book fan.
I can imagine, yes.
Yeah.
I get that feeling. I'm also a big book fan. I just run out of spaces. I don't know where to put them.
The problem is not enough shelves. There's no other problem.
Yeah, it's always the shelves, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a shelf, funnily enough, to this morning. I got it delivered. It was a little desk shelf because I've got too many extra books. I just couldn't control myself, and I just had to buy them.
Yeah.
And put it together, and it just broke on me. All I did was put it down on the table. And I thought, well, that's obviously not very sturdy, is it?
No,
not for the big books that I've got.
Bigger, better desk shelf. Yeah.
But good. That's it's nice, because you mentioned something very important, which is to enjoy nature, and that's so. And I say this so many times, of course, but it is very, very important. Even going for a walk by yourself, or with somebody, being accompanied, and even if it's 20 minutes, 15 minutes, it does put a fresh perspective on things. You just got to try to see that change.
It does. Yeah. Yesterday I was in quite I don't know, a little bit stroppy mood. One of our favourite organic veg shops has stopped doing what they were doing, changed hands, and my partner mentioned it. I'm like, I'm really sad, I don't want to do anything. And anyway, we took the dogs through a walk around this beautiful reservoir just up the road from us and came back. I'm like, actually, I can cope with this, I can face it, I can deal with this again. So it does make such a difference. And for me, I think there's something about, I could probably rant about this all day, but getting our kids out into wild spaces, getting them to fall in love with the world around them, because we are nature, aren't we? It's not like there's nature around us. We are just a whole part of this complex, incredible, simple, beautiful life that we're a part of. And so I think the more we have our kids out, whether they're building dens or finding beetles and mini beasts in the grass or whatever they're doing, I think the more we can fall in love with our home, the more we're going to look after it. Yeah.
That's so true. And what have you got planned down the line? So what's this year? What's in store this year and next year? What are you working on? Yeah,
good question. I'm deepening my practice around clinical supervision. So looking at studying a diploma in that, starting later on in the year. I'm just finishing a course on provocative, it's called Provocative Change Works, around using provocative therapy and other tools in practice. I have a real fascination of different things and how we could help people, and every single time come back to, well, that doesn't beat homeopathy. No disrespect to any of these other methods. I think, there's loads of things that can fit well together, but in terms of where I want to spend my time, reading homeopathy books, deepening my work around clinical supervision, and doing more of the same, really. So just, really grateful I'm at this point. I sat this morning and was looking at a 5-year plan and where I want to be and how I want it to look. And really, there's a lot of more of the same. There's some long distance walks in there, but definitely, doing more around the supervision work, looking at, just really, deepening my homeopathy practice. There's so many, fantastic people out there to learn from. Like you're talking about, Sholton and Sankaran being on the show. Annette Sneevlet, as I mentioned earlier, is another of my favourite teachers. Mahesh Gandhi's doing some incredible work. There's so many people. Dinesh Chauhan, I've got a couple of his books I need to fully finish and read. There's some brilliant people. So, any spare time, let's dive into those and explore and learn more. And the Joshes, I love their work as well. And in the UK, I studied with Helen Dalton, Grazia Gatti and Ilana Danaheiser, who are teaching there. It's an evolving sensation course, it's called, which I think is starting the new cohort soon. So a little plug for that course. It's fantastic, really helps with the understanding of the Joshi's work. And they're working, using some of the Joshi's cases with their permission. The Joshis are very much behind the teaching that they're doing. It's a fantastic course. So more reading and learning and doing.
It's nice, isn't it? It's wonderful. Emma, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Time's really flown, hasn't it?
Hasn't it?
We
It's been
just
great
started.
chatting. Yeah.
It's interesting, and I hope that very soon, or in the near future, or in the future, you will come back and we can talk a bit more, about homeopathy and what you're up to, and what what you've been working on, really.
It's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you. And thank you for all you're doing to help promote and discuss homeopathy. I talk to clients, if they want to leave a testimonial, and I very much say, it's not about somebody coming to see me. It's about somebody who's out there suffering and not knowing there's something that they could be helped with. There's so many people struggling with, I don't know, chronic headaches or pain, or whether that be emotional or physical pain, and just not knowing that there's an option out there that might help them. So yeah, thank you for all that you're doing.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you. It's all about homeopathy, isn't it? It's one big, huge community around the world, and it's something that we all have in common, irrespective of our skills and where we've learned or what we've studied and what system we're using, or whether we're not using one or not. It's still all, the objective is the same, to help people get better. Yeah. And I think that's what binds us and links us, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you.
I do hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of the Homeopathy Health Show. Please do support the show by clicking follow on my socials. Remember, the more exposure the podcast receives, the better for homeopathy around the world. You can find me on Instagram by searching for @like_treatslike, and on both Facebook and TikTok by searching for @like_treatslike. So let's promote the voice of homeopathy on radio and podcast around the world together. Don't forget to visit me online at www.liketreatslike.co.uk and click on the radio and podcast tab. Here you'll be able to see all the guests that have joined me on the show so far, and of course you can stream on demand the latest episode to your mobile, tablet or PC. Until next time, stay safe and take care.